Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. On this week's episode, I'll be speaking with triple murderer Deandra Buchanan. On November 7th, 2000, Deandra, his stepfather, aunt, and girlfriend were celebrating after his aunt found an apartment that she was approved to rent. Sometime during the night of the celebration, Deandra claimed that people were trying to kill him and or put him in jail. He began acting very paranoid. He threatened the people that were at the party and ended up fatally shooting his stepfather, aunt, and girlfriend, and wounded one other person who actually had offered him a ride after the shootings. Deandra has stated that he doesn't remember the entirety of events from that day since his conviction and experienced some type of blackout due to some marijuana that was laced with PCP he had smoked shortly before the killings took place. Deandra was arrested the same day and charged with the murders of his family, plus for the assault of the man that was wounded. Deandra was sentenced to death for the three murders and received an additional life sentence for the assault. A little over a year after being sentenced to death, his sentence was commuted to life without the possibility of parole. Deandra did not care to discuss his crimes. Instead, he makes mention of his interview on Netflix, I Am a Killer, which is Season 1, Episode 7. Here's my interview with Deandra Buchanan.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from an offender at the Jefferson City Correctional Center.
Where were you born?
I was born in Centerville, Illinois, a little small hospital called Touche Hospital.
What was your first positive memory as a child?
I would have to say waking up at like 12:02 in the morning, and my parents would always start my Christmases like that. They would always have me They would always wake me up and be like, "Hey, Christmas time, Merry Christmas!" It's like 12:01 in the morning. All my toys, majority of my toys, would be put together in the living room, and I come in there and they just let me have my way. And they sit there together, my dad and my mom, and they would just let me enjoy myself, and we would all just be this family, have that family moment, and so I wear myself back out, and then they put me back in the bed, and I go to sleep. And it starts all over when I wake up. That's just one of the many positive memories.
What was your first negative memory as a child?
I would say that when my dad asked my mom to marry her, and she said no, I felt as though I was about to lose my father, and I wasn't going to have both of them together like I always did. So I would have to say that was like my first negative memory. Hearing my mom decline my daddy's wishes to marry her, she didn't want to marry him for whatever reasons. I didn't know why, but that was one of the negative memories I can remember the earliest one I can remember as a child.
Were you close with your mother or father growing up?
Oh, yes, I was. Very, very close to both of my parents.
Did you suffer any childhood abuse or trauma?
Yes, I did. Outside, normal things, being a little daredevil, risky child, or hurting myself, things like that, falling, and one time I busted my head. But the most traumatic event in my life I would consider being a pivotal point is when my father had a fatal accident on a motorcycle. That was like one of the contributing factors that I have to live with to this day, thinking back how that really affected my life.
How old were you at the time?
I think I was about 11, 10 going on 11. My birthday falls so late in the year. It happened during the summertime. Yeah. Him and I was supposed to go riding on the motorcycle that day. He wouldn't let me ride. I was mad at him. And that was the same day I lost my father to a fatal accident. The same day he didn't want to let me ride the motorcycle with him that day.
Hmm.
So the last memories I had of him was me being mad at him because I couldn't ride the motorcycle. That was the last time and experience that I was really upset with him. It was the last time I saw him alive. I don't know, we got many memories together, but that was the last actual time that I would see him alive.
What was your behavior like growing up, going back as early as you can remember?
Very disciplined. I had like a very open upbringing. What I mean by that is, on my mom's side, it was more like it was more not so structured, but it was structured there. Where we had chores, we had things like that. They taught us how to clean, cook, uh, bank accounts, typical family life skills, stuff like that. But I didn't have to say yes sir, no sir. But I couldn't say what to my parents on my mom's side. My mom on neither her parents, but on my dad's side, had to go to church every Sunday. It was really structured. It was really more disciplinary, more mannerism, a lot of level of mannerism and stuff like that. Although I had both sides of my family, my grandparents as well as my parents reinforcing, my mannerism, respect, stuff like that. But it was a little more structured on my dad's side.
What was your behavior like in school, primarily in your middle school and high school years?
Well, after I lost my father, I lost a lot of interest. At first, I was on this path of all A's, just all A's, just an honor roll student all the way up to the seventh grade, I think it was. All the way up to the eighth grade, I was an honor roll student. But then, as me not having my father and that that father structure, that father figure, that relationship, because he was a disciplinary person in my family, as my parents. He was more disciplined than my mother was. And so losing him and not knowing how to really deal with it, I started acting out. So I went from being an honor roll student to being one of the average students to where I started messing up. Grades start falling. Start trying to be hip and cool, skipping school, and start dibbling around off into drinking alcohol. And from alcohol, start experimenting with marijuana. And before you know it, I got kicked off the basketball team because my coach just was like, "That's it." Because I kept trying to sneak and get high, and they kept finding out about it. They gave me break after break, kicked me off the team, and they ended up having to go to summer school to graduate from junior high school, and it just spiraled out from there for real, man. Ended up quitting school. Well, I ended up getting banned from public schools for my drug use and drug activities in school, and they just ended up kicking me out of school. So I had to go to alternative school, and from there I ended up just saying I lost interest in school, and that was it. Only thing I ever done in school was marijuana and alcohol. That's it. We frowned on any kind of other drug. No, we frowned on all kind of hard. We didn't look at marijuana as being a hard drug or alcohol. But any other drug, no. Me and my friends didn't bother to dip and dab off into nothing other than a little marijuana smoke here and there, stuff like that.
Did you engage in any type of criminal activity as a juvenile?
Yeah, I got in trouble dibbling and dabbling off into the drug trade a little bit. Got in trouble. Ended up on probation, and yeah, found myself back in the early '80s. Was a lot of cocaine activity going on in a lot of inner cities, and I got caught up in that. No, I never used other. Only other drugs I ever used coming up as a teenager was weed. I never smoked any other chemical but marijuana. I used to drink, like I said, I used to drink beer, but I got off into peddling drugs when I was a teenager, and ended up getting in trouble. Got put on probation for it.
When and how did you meet your girlfriend, Angela Brown, one of the three victims in this case?
I met her through a cousin, her cousin. I met her cousin when I was down visiting my aunt in Columbia, Missouri. I was going to visit them one time, and her cousin introduced me to her, and that's how I ended up meeting Angela. I was in my early 20s, I believe. I think I was like 22, maybe 21, something like that. Cause I was like, nah, she was 17 when I met her. Nah, she was 17, and I was turning 22. Yeah, she was 17. I was turning 22. I was 21, turning 22.
What is the extent of your criminal history as an adult up until the cases that landed you in prison?
Well, it's really not something that's abnormal. I just really got off into, the drug trade a little bit, and I found that to be something that was an easy way to make money, but as I think back, it really was a hard way of choosing to make income or revenue. It was more risk and more of a burden for real when I think back on it. But it looked like it was easy, and then when you were doing it, but when you really sit back and you think about all the things that go into that, I would have been better off with a job, for real.
Cult Collectibles is the #1 site for historical items from the People's Temple, Heaven's Gate, Om Shinrikyo, and many other cults that you never even knew existed. Hundreds of hours of work have gone into curating our collection of unique and one-of-a-kind items from the dark history of these groups. We also have a large selection of true crime memorabilia from such notorious cases as Edmund Kemper, Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson, and many more. We add new items to the site every week and post sales and auctions on our Instagram at Cult Collectibles. Unforbidden Truth listeners can save 20% off their first order with the promo code TRUTH at checkout. So visit us on the web at cultcollectibles.org today.
Let's talk about the crimes that you're currently in prison for. You're convicted of killing your girlfriend, stepfather, and aunt. Can you walk me through everything that led up to the November 7th, 2000 triple murder?
Well, to give you a more detail, as well as your audience, I'm gonna refer you and them to this documentary called "I'm a Killer" series on Netflix, and it really pretty much gives the details about all that for the sake of the time that you and I have. That's going to take up way more than these 5 minutes for me to walk you through all of that. And plus, it's a lot of stuff that was said that I would have to sit down and probably reflect on. So I believe that to help you and your audience to get a better understanding of my story and what really happened about that crime that night is to watch I'm a Killer series on Netflix. I mean, they can really get a detailed layout of everything. I'm also back in court, and there's a lot of technicalities that has taken place that we had discovered, and so my case is like back open again. So I'm currently back in court as we speak. So that's why it'll be a lot better for you and your audience to go to that series, that documented series, and really get the full facts and layout of everything. My sentence is illegal because some things, the way that they taken me off death row, I was illegally sentenced to death. The same judge turned around and illegally sentenced me to life without parole. So that's how I end up back in court. So what we're trying to do is get me resentenced, which will open up my appeals, or if the state willing to give me some type of plea bargain, I'm open for that. But until then, the main objective is, if they don't want to give me a plea bargain, is to get the conviction overturned. Because there's so many things that I have discovered learning law that they have done wrong that I'm entitled to a new trial. So that's the main objective, is either settle the case for the sake of my family. I don't really want to take everybody back through that again, the emotional hardship after all this time. But if the state don't want to consider settling the case with a plea bargain, then I'm just going to go for the conviction being overturned.
You were arrested the same day the triple homicides were committed. What was your first night in jail like after being charged with the homicides?
When I first woke up, they set me down and told me what I had done. And shit, a tear came down my eye, and I asked them, can I use the phone? I called my family members, and they was like, man, we heard you flipped out. We heard you flipped out. Did they test you? Did they test you? So I asked the jail personnel lady, I said, did y'all test me? She was like, no. I was like, no, they didn't. And he's like, man, you better tell them people to test you. You better tell them to test you. That was my first night in jail. That's what it was like for me. They kept me separated from the population because I didn't even remember what I had done when I got to jail. I didn't even remember how I got there. They had me on observation for 3 days, they told me. You because I was out of it. People was telling me I was talking to myself in the cell and stuff like that, and they was, man, who in the cell with you? Because they would lock the other guys down and they'll let me out. And then the guys was like, man, something wrong with you, man. I'm telling you, man, you need to get yourself checked out. So I think I was still under that mental, that chemical had still had a mental, it was affecting my mental shit probably for like a week or two. Shit, if not longer than that. Because they kept me separated from people for a long time, for at least about 2 weeks.
Did you get any gruff while you were on trial from the inmates or COs due to your high-profile status?
Nah, didn't nobody really bother me for real. No. No. Majority of the people that was coming to the county jail, I kind of was familiar with a lot of them anyway. From that little town that I used to be in, Columbia. Didn't nobody really bother me. I was very mannerable and respectful, and the deputy sheriffs and everything respected me, and yeah, it was, I didn't really have any kind of problems like that.
Were you afraid of the death penalty being a possible outcome when it came to sentencing?
This sounds kind of crazy, but at that time of my life, man, I had accepted death that came along with a lifestyle I chose to live. I wasn't even really, I'm not going to lie to you. At that time of my life, man, death was nothing we even considered to fear. I just didn't rush into it, but I didn't fear it, though.
On April 22nd, 2002, you were sentenced to death for the 3 homicides. How did you feel when you were handing down your sentence?
I mean, pretty much like I said, it was, in my mind, in my heart, I knew that this wasn't going to be the final say-so. For some reason, I just knew that. So I really didn't feel anything other than took the opportunity to try to extend my apologies to my families and stuff like that. That's about it.
A little over a year after being sentenced to death, you're resentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Do you remember the feeling you had when you got the news you wouldn't be executed by the state of Missouri?
Well, at the time, it was like a burden lift off of me that I didn't even realize I was carrying. And that's the part that kind of like was surreal. I was like, wow, all this time I never knew I was carrying such a burden. But that's about all I really can remember when I was told that my death sentence was set aside. But I knew that that wasn't the final victory, though. I just knew that was a part of the process of me one day walking out of prison.
I remember reading a news article saying that you were engaged to a famous UK rapper's baby's mother. How did that come about? And did you guys ever end up tying the knot?
No, we did not, unfortunately. She reached out to me after watching the documentary I'm a Killer series, and we kind of like got cool, hit it off a little bit, and she moved here, and one thing led to another. We found ourselves engaged, and I don't think it was meant to be. That's the only thing I can say. I don't think it was meant to be. But we friends, and we at the time, and I'm not into, talking about everything, but I don't want to put no negative light on anybody or anything. So we just end up going our separate ways. I'll just leave it at that. But I'm, at the moment, I'm engaged to another girl from over there in the UK. We have a little boy, and he just turned 2 years old today. So I guess it was just meant for me to be with the girl that I'm with now instead of the one that I was with. It's the only way I can look at it. This is our new current project that we have, but before I got this, I'm going to call this a devastating tragedy. Before this devastating tragedy occurred in our family and caused and altered so many of our lives, I was working with a label based in Hollywood, California called Coroner Records. It was founded by Ice-T and the rapper, musician slash actor Ice-T. And he gave me a job. And it was one of the first digital labels in the late 90s. We was trying to be the first internet-based label. It was doing pretty good. I ended up, like I said, this devastating tragedy changed my courses, and I came here. But now we have a new label called Final Level Music.com, and It's an internet based label, and we have several artists out. I have a job awaiting me as soon as I leave this prison in a house out in California, a place to live, and so that's what's awaiting me when I leave here. I came up with the idea of pushing our label over in the UK. So now we're going to have a final level music UK label. So we're going to try to push the label over there. We're in the process of developing that right now. And so, by the grace of God, I still have their support after all these years. They're still in my corner. That's who I had called the night I was used the phone. I called my family, Hen G, we call him. I called him and his brother DJ Evil E. I had called them at the house because that's where I was staying at. I was just coming back and forth here to Columbia to visit my family and my children and some other wrong reasons and stuff like that. But I was trying to make a transition from that street life to the entertainment world to leave all the negativity, criminal lifestyle alone. But unfortunately, the lifestyle caught up with me before I was able to make that full transition. But over the years of me being incarcerated, I have educated myself more into the music business, and now I'm ready to further my education upon me being released. And that's what's going on with that. Over the years, I have gained skills of writing a little bit, but my strong points are mainly like producing, marketing. So I would say production and marketing, stuff like that. Those are my strong points, the most knowledge and skills I have. Because that's what I was really doing and I was learning before this happened. And now, like I said, over the years, it's reading more books, staying in touch with the family, gaining more knowledge. I'm seeing that my strong points in that particular industry, in the music business, falls up under production and marketing.
Before we conclude this interview, is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
I mean, other than, I just hope one day people can realize that we all make mistakes. And sometimes when you make a poor judgment, the judgment that you make is a life altering situation. And like my situation, it was a devastating tragedy. And I just pray one day that people realize that I'm not that person that I once was, and the crime that I committed, hopefully it doesn't continue to label me as being defined as one who committed such a devastating crime, or in some people's eyes, a tragedy or a horrific situation. And other than that, like I said, I'm sitting in prison illegal due to my sentence being invalid. So I really could use as much support in these circumstances as I can. And like I was saying, I have a social media platform that people can reach out to, Instagram page. I had a Facebook page, but it kind of got messed up. But if they want to like reach out to me directly, they can do like a JPay account. Deandra Buchanan 1036512 is a prison number, and I'm in Jefferson City Correctional Facility in Missouri. Also, I have an Instagram page. It's two of them. One of them is Mr. Buchanan underscore, and it's a little bit on the Instagram page about my sentence and a few other things. And it's another one that we just established. It's called DKO underscore BU4. It's another Instagram page. And those are the two social media platforms they can reach out to me. And also, if you'd like to reach out to one of the person that really like handle my affairs with the label, his name is Hen G. You can catch him at his Instagram page as well and follow him. It's called, his is Hen G Garcia. And like I said, we have a finallevelmusic.com. People can check that out. And like I said, if you just want to give us the support we're really looking for to help me come home one day, please feel free to reach out. You can even write me at 8200 No More Victims Road, Jefferson City, Missouri, 65101, if you choose not to want to send emails. Other than that, that's pretty much I got, man. I thank you for this opportunity to be a part of your podcast. And I hope that we can do a future interview in the near future when I come home.
That was my interview with Deandra Buchanan. If you like this episode or any previous ones for that matter, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and check out my Patreon, which will give you additional interviews, a virtual true crime gallery, which features items from my personal collection, a monthly inmate procured artifact package, and much more. Thank you for listening.